Welcome back to my channel, Jabot Trumps. Today I'm just reacting on this video called The Unseen World and Demon Possession and Exorcism. I'm so fascinated by the spiritual world. It's just like me and you right now, you feel me? So let's watch and hear some knowledge, and yeah, let's proceed hearing this pastor's gonna talk about his experience.
The Orthodox Christian has to be constantly aware that the invisible world is always active. We're extremely cautious with everything, including ourselves. We recognize that any thought or impulse we have may be from God, but it also may just be psychological from us, or it may be from the demons. And we have to recognize in all humility that we probably don't have the discernment to distinguish one from another. Well, the great saints and elders have that discernment. When we don't have that discernment, we tend to be pretty distrustful of ourselves, which is why we go to our spiritual father. But we are ever aware of the demonic world around us. At the same time, we're not hyper-focused on it. We don't become obsessed with it. We don't give more attention than it's due. And I think this is spiritually one of the dangers that people make, is that when they do have something happening in their spiritual life that they feel is demonic, sometimes if you begin to really worry about it and give it more focus than it's due, you actually strengthen it. For instance, people are sometimes surprised when they have what are their logis me? What are these random thoughts that comes up that's particularly kind of crazy? I'm driving down the road and out of the blue I have a thought with my kids in the back of the car to jerk the wheel and careen my car off the road and kill us all. And it's a fleeting thought, it's in and out. And I go, I've never had a thought like that before. What just happened? Well, if I give it hyper focus, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna strengthen it. I'm gonna start worrying about it. I'm gonna start giving it a power that it doesn't otherwise have. But if in those moments we can learn to say, I'm gonna put my thoughts right back on Christ and just say, Lord, I know that thought was crazy. That didn't come from me. It clearly didn't come from you. Banish those thoughts from me and then go right back to your prayer life and your world of peace. You're gonna be better off. I teach people all the time. I tell them one of the greatest spiritual tools I can give them is called the Holy Shrug.
And I just want to say something before we continue talking, is that I saw a lot of videos, people saying that something told them to do something, evil, do bad things for, do murder and all that. And he's really on point on that one. I remember as well my story as well, that we're camping, me and my brother climbing a mountain. Suddenly I had a thought to push my brother down. I'm like, why am I having this thought? And I knew that it was not me. It's like, why am I having this thought? So you must sometimes if you have the spirit of discernment within yourself, and that's still little, the reason why we have this thoughts is because our spiritual man, it still hasn't grown, it's still unmatured. So those thoughts can come in our brain and just hit us like, yo, do this, and you feel like doing it, but your logical side and your spiritual side is like, nah, bro, why should I do it? So it's better to ask questions when you are faced with this kind of challenges, man.
The Holy Shrug is to take something that has happened and just say, yeah, okay, and go back to normal life. Because otherwise you give it way more credit than it's due. And if the thought isn't helping you, then why are you giving it attention in the first place? Don't let it live rent-free in your head. Go back to holy things and focus on those as much as possible. So the St. Porphyrios method is really the best. And that's to fight for Christ with your back to the demons, rather than trying to fight directly against the demons with your back to Christ. Having said all that, we do take the demonic very seriously. We're very cautious of it. And I've had experiences that have absolutely awakened me to not only how seriously we need to take the demonic, but also how much more power Christ has over the demonic.
What does demon possession mean? How do the Orthodox view, that concept?
Yeah, Saint Silouan the Athonite, he gives a really clear explanation on this when he talks about how that possession really comes in different stages. When we hear the word possession, we tend to think of the Hollywood type of possession, where somebody has lost control of themselves because a demon is controlling them. This type of thing does happen. I know priests who have done exorcisms on people that were almost out of a Hollywood movie. I mean, literally people levitated off the ground from demonic power, people speaking in languages they didn't know, and some really horrific things. But this is very rare. This is very rare. The demons much more so want to make us not aware of them. They want to make us not think about the spiritual world at all and just become obsessed with this world, the comforts and pleasures therein. And so there are many lesser levels of possession that we all have to deal with. And what St. Silouan says is this. He says, if you love your enemies, this is a sign that grace is within you. But if you hate your enemies, it's a sign that a demon is within you instead.
Yeah, man, it's actually on point on that one. I remember, like, I'm reminded, like, 8 years ago, 10 years, yeah, I think 10 years ago, there was this girl. I was once listening to music. I was listening to music, and I was in my room dancing and everything in the mirror, like you know, reciting the artist's lyrics and everything. And suddenly I felt something popping in my body, like boom. So I almost fell down to the ground, like, but I held myself up. I'm like, hey, what happened? And I felt exhausted, but I said, you know what? Let me just continue. You know, I continued playing the song and everything. So later when I started, you know, the demon, when I was asleep, started to repeat the lyrics to me, you know. So suddenly there was a friend of mine who I was looking for, you know, we artists recording music, and one of my friend brought this lady. She was a Christian. She's a Christian, not what, she's a Christian. And she comes there with my friend, and suddenly it's like, yo bro, my friend's like, yo bro, I brought this chick, you know, this lady to you. Let's hear her voice, maybe we can use her voice. I'm like, fine, we can do that. And suddenly when she started, you know, I wanna say she started singing, I started to hate. I wanted to beat this lady up. You know, I felt that impulse, like I was holding myself so strongly that I wanted to beat the lady up. Like, I couldn't understand the feeling. She was singing because she was singing gospel songs, you know, but I'm listening to her, but something in me wanted to beat this woman up. Like, it couldn't handle the woman praising God. And I'm asking myself, like, I'm listening to her at that moment, and within myself, like, why must I beat this woman up? So I'm holding myself together. And then, you know, when you're in your last strength, like, you're holding yourself together. If I let go here, I might do something crazy. And I was holding myself to the point that I couldn't, like, yo. And I never interrupted her. I was holding myself like, I'm gonna beat this girl up. Why should I beat this girl up? I ain't gonna do that. And after she stopped singing, my friends like, what you think? Like, she's good, we'll work with her. And she left. She never stood around. It's like she left. And I told my friend, like, bro, we can't work with her. The voice is not for me. I didn't understand the time I was possessed, bro. At the time, I didn't understand it. So sometimes you don't have the knowledge of it at that moment, you know, until we grow up, until we study scriptures, then we find out, like, yo bro, damn, I was possessed at that moment and I had a spirit in me. So I don't know, but right now I'm free. I go to church. I don't feel all that thing in me anymore. I'm free. So yeah, it happens.
Well, there's a certain level of possession. So possession really goes in different stages.
Yeah.
But this is why the Orthodox baptismal service begins with an exorcism. The very first thing we do is we stand in the back of the church, and the priest makes the sign of the cross and breathes on the candidates, and then does 3 prayers of exorcism. Saint Diadochos of Photikis says that what's happening in these prayers is that the nature of man is being restored. He says that before one is made a Christian, the demons and evil work from within the heart, and grace works from the outside, as if knocking on the door. But after baptism, and especially after these prayers, everything is reversed. Now grace naturally works from within, and the demons are the ones trying to attack from the outside. This is often why people after baptism experience much more difficult and violent demonic attacks on their spiritual life, as the demons are now trying to reclaim their territory. And this is exactly why Christ gives us the example after baptism of going into the desert to do what? To do battle with Satan. So we know that the demons are going to fight against us. So every Orthodox Christian...
Well, bro, he went there too fast. He didn't go to battle with Satan. He went there too fast for 40 days. I don't know what he means by that, battling with Satan. I don't know, but he have to explain. So, but when you read the Bible, after the baptism, the Spirit of the Lord took Jesus to the wilderness to fast for what? For 40 days. Why? To start anew. You know, every 40 days there's a new beginning. You know, even your body, when you semen, we call talk semen, in your system, every 40 days the body consumes it, observes it, you know, back to the system. But during the 40 days, it doesn't do that. Until after 40, then it consumed it. God flooded the earth for 40 days to start anew. Why? Because the old generation was sinful. Every 40 days, there's a new beginning. The Israelites, they were complaining when they came out of Egypt. Israelites were complaining, all this and that. God says, you know what, since you're complaining, this generation will filter more in my new kingdom that I want to bring them to them. So I have to keep them here for 40 days. After 40 days of the wilderness, then the new beginning came. So the old generation died and the new generation grew. You see, every 40 days, there's a new beginning. If we pray for 40 days right now, and examine yourself, pray for 40 days, you see a new change in you. So every 40 days a change. So I don't know what he means by he went to, you know, Jesus went to the desert to fight the devil. No, he didn't fight the devil. He fasted for 40 days for new beginning, for new strength. Remember, after he came out of the wilderness, after day 40, who met Jesus? Not the angels, not the disciple, the devil himself. So I don't know what he means by that, but you know, he met the devil and devil tempted him because he knew power has been restored. So I don't know what he means by that, but
if you've been brought into the church, has experienced an exorcism on themselves, but you do get cases where exorcisms are done on people or places in which it's a much deeper, higher level of possession. And I will tell you, I haven't done an exorcism like that with a person, but I have been part of exorcisms of places that were absolutely covered with demonic energy, and the experience is utterly life-changing. The most extreme case that I was a part of, I won't give any details of the place, but I will say that this was out in a more deserted area, and it was a series of buildings. And it just so happened that there had been stories in this area for many, many years of people seeing and hearing things that sounded, you know, ghostly or something like that, and sounded demonic. And the particular year that I was there, the activity increased exponentially. I actually wasn't a priest yet, but we did call in a priest and asked him to look at this area, and he consulted with some people who were more familiar with exorcisms. And after hearing all the stories, he decided that we were going to do the exorcism service of the church, which is just some prayers of St. Basil and St. John Chrysostom, and do them in every single building of this area. I will tell you that before he came, being outside at night alone was terrifying. I myself experienced seeing someone in a distance staring at me, and as I walked closer, they completely disappeared. And I heard behind me footsteps when I was walking outside. And I will tell you that they were, in the middle of the night, as clear as could be, the sound of footsteps right behind me. And then you turn around and you see nothing there.
Yeah. It happened to me once. I don't like to interrupt the Lord, but in his resurrection video anyway. It happened to me once when I came out the crusade. I was walking. It was at night around 1 a.m. in the morning. It's 1 a.m. so midnight, you know, it's midnight. So as I'm walking, I start to hear a lot of footsteps, you know, a lot. Like I thought, because you know I'm walking at night, there are animals, you know, stray animals, big animals, you know, cows, you know, horses and all that. I'm thinking of that, or donkeys. So there was so much footsteps, so you know, gravitating towards me. I stopped and I turned around and I looked and I see nothing. But at that moment, there was fear in the atmosphere. My body felt the energy of fear, like fear. And I told myself, because I'm not a new beginner to these spiritual things, I said, this is not my fear, it's the enemy's fear, so I'm not gonna react. So when I looked, I headed to the road, continued walking. I didn't run, I just continued walking normally, because I knew that if I react, hell's gonna break loose, everything's gonna go down. So I didn't react, I just continued walking. And I didn't open my mouth and say, you know, Lord, Lord. I just said, yeah, nah. Things do happen when you come out, when you walk at night. So that's what he experienced. You know, it's real, man. The energy is there, and you will know that's not your energy. You know that it's the energy of the enemy. And bear in mind that, you know, demons project what they inhabit, what they are consumed by. They're consumed by fear. So they're projecting fear upon us as well, so that we can be moved by their fear. Remember, they're thinking of the terminal, you know, hell, they're gonna be condemned, their time is near. So they're projecting that fear is consuming them. So you are receiving their fear. So once you in that moment, just know that it's not your fear, it's the enemy's fear, bro.
Very few things have taught me how to pray the Jesus prayer like that night. That was a terrifying night. And everyone who was there was experiencing things like this, hearing voices and other such things. What was incredible was, while that was terrifying, we saw the power of Christ, and we saw how much Christ has absolute power over the invisible world. What happened was we did the exorcism prayers for hours. It took hours to go from building to building and do them in every single one. But the next day we had an interesting situation. The night after these exorcism services, some of us were out at night, and we noticed there was a palpable difference. And some people may think this was simply psychological, but I'll tell you it wasn't. Being outside felt peaceful. You wanted to sleep outside under the stars. It just felt completely different. And of course, even we were, you know, wondering, is this just psychological? It certainly didn't feel psychological.
Yeah,
it felt like this was an otherworldly piece that had entered this area. And then the next morning, something really fascinating happened. Even though this was kind of a secluded area out in the wilderness, we never considered the fact that we rarely ever saw animals around that area. But the morning after the exorcisms, it was like a Disney movie. Deer, owls, rabbits, all over the place. As if nature itself recognized that demonic energy was gone, and they all flooded there. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced. And again, the lesson for me was not to fear the demonic as much as it was as to stick close to Christ, because Christ's power over the demonic was so incredibly palpable. It was an unforgettable experience.
What type of things open us up to the demonic? What are things that we should avoid, you know, in our day-to-day lives that we might not be aware of, that are actually might open up doors for demons to enter into our lives?
Just don't sin, and you don't have to worry about it. It's simple. So, obviously, you know, whenever we sin, we align ourselves. This is kind of what salvation will be. Is one of the ways of looking at salvation is have we aligned ourselves more with the angels or the demons? You know, they're going to argue about what do our souls look like? Do they look more demonic or more angelic? And so, I mean, really, just struggling in the spiritual life for Christ and constantly seeking His grace and His forgiveness is a protection in and of itself. It's also wise to stay away from any spiritual practices that are not orthodox, especially those that participate in the occult. Some people make light of these things, and they don't actually think they're participating in them, the Ouija board and things like that. But even in other areas, becoming obsessed with horror movies and those types of things. In the vast majority of cases, are you going to see, you know, direct and overt possessions after these? No, probably not. But we do acclimate ourselves to evil in that sense. To be entertained by evil is a really, really odd thing. To be entertained by watching somebody go around and kill people is odd. And to be entertained by some of the demonic movies is odd. So I had a man in my first parish come up to me right as I was about to begin Orthros one Sunday. And he asked me, do you Orthodox do exorcisms? Now, whenever somebody asks you that, you know there's a story behind it. So I said, tell me what happened. I said, I have to start the service in about 5 minutes, so I don't have a lot of time, but tell me what happened. He said that he thought it would be funny to take some occult imagery and to make on Halloween a fake casket with a rope and to drag it around town. And just to kind of mock some of the Christian beliefs about death and the demonic and things like that. And he said ever since he had done that, he had felt a presence behind him. And that he was waking up in the middle of the night with scratches on his body, hearing growling. And at one point he woke up and he saw a dark figure above him with this hot breath right on his face. And
oh, God damn.
he said no matter what he had done, he couldn't get rid of it. This was about 3 weeks after Halloween. And he said he really regretted what he had done. I told him, listen, I don't have a lot of time right now. And I was a very new priest. I needed to kind of consult at that time. But I said, I need to go start the service, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to stay. And if you can't stay right now, come back for liturgy. Come back for the divine liturgy, and afterwards, I promise you we'll talk. Unfortunately, he never showed up again. He left and didn't come back. I have no idea what happened to him to this day. But that is one of many cases I've seen of people who have dabbled with mocking the demonic or dabbling in occultism and having significant problems afterwards.
What about things that might seem harmless, like listening to secular music, rap music, you know, where a lot of the themes that are being talked about in the music is like killing, but you know, some people rationalize it and like, well, I'm not thinking about those things. I just like the energy of the song and I like how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
What about things like that?
Yeah, I remember growing up, I was into rock and alternative, and I remember somebody once calling rock demonic, and I laughed and I said, it's just utterly ridiculous. This is not demonic music. They're not talking about demons. They're not worshiping demons. There's no demonic imagery in the bands that I was following. But as I grew older and hopefully matured a bit, I started to see that when we say that things are demonic, we don't necessarily mean demonic in the overt sense. What we mean is that there's something about this that displays a demonic energy. It's kind of interesting. I would listen to some of that music and I would notice that I would be an angrier person after listening to it. Or sometimes I would just be more secular. I would have a looser sense of morals. So these things do get into us, and we have to believe that. We have to believe that what.
Remember, I was talking about earlier one that I was listening to music, and through the music something popped in me. So we do open gates for the spiritual world, because when you recite something and maybe you're listening to it, you're vibing to it, you're visualizing it, and that moment, not knowingly, you're opening the gates. You know, you're opening, because now in the spirit realm, every word is counted. Especially when you're growing spiritually, when you're a prayer warrior, praying, your spirit is open, your light gate is open, you know, the third eye, you're talking about the spiritual eye, it's open. So once you recite those things, immediately possession will come, something will enter, because you're allowing it, not knowingly, not even aware of it. But the more you do it, so some people, if they're not actually, you know, they're not spiritual, you know, meaning spiritual, meaning you're not, you didn't open your third eye, you know, you're not praying all the time, things are going to happen around you. Just like that guy who saw, you know, the story of that guy that who mocked, you know, the devil or, you know, Jesus at the same time, and start to see, you know, shadows, demons breathing on his neck, and all dreams, waking up at night. You know, it's because his spirituality is not yet open. But the more he continues, the more they you know, somebody was talking about this, I can't remember, this other guy said they will disengage the, you know, the balance in your neck, so this way we don't enter. So it's a lot of, you know, method, you know, terminology and all that. And I'm not that clever enough, but you know, that's what actually happens. If you spiritually you opened, then it's easy access. But if you still closed, they have to get to that point that they destroy your spirit, then they can answer. It's all about dominate.
Enters the body in the senses, doesn't then just pass through and leave us without leaving its mark. Everything we consume in that sense leaves some sort of fingerprint. And the fingerprint of secularism itself may not be, again, overtly demonic, but does it lend itself towards a more secular perspective, which means less Christ-centered? Yes. And is that not in itself a form of being demonic? So again, this is not necessarily going to lead us to demon worship, and I think that's what a lot of people assume, but it does actually acclimate ourselves to.
Yeah, that's the end of the video, man. I'll leave the full video in the description below, so you can watch it for yourself and listen to what possession, or what the possession does to the system. And as a former host person was possessed before, not knowingly, I know what he's talking about, and there are scary things that you're gonna do. So if you're a Christian, man, do not sin. Do not indulge in sin, especially in Pornhub, sexual sin, having sex all the time, and whatever sin that dominates you the most, as the one will open the gates for the spiritual evilness to enter you. Whatever, bro. You can just gossip, but gossip is destroying yourself. But the more you gossip, you believe in gossip, the more you entice that belief, and the more the enemy will come and have an access to possess you. Just like me, I had a sexual sin. It was too much for me, and I grew up with that. So the enemy can dominate me to that field, and he knew that if I enter that, if I'm in that area, he can win. So I had to fight that area, and since I fought that area, he cannot enter me, he cannot win. So whatever sin that dominates you will cause possession upon you. So repent and fight that sin by prayer and fasting. That's all I want to say, man. And don't forget to subscribe and like and leave a comment. I'll see you on the next video.